have been discussing Christianity and its impact on science. Did Christianity suppress science? Previously, we have studied three ideas: the idea of progress, the idea of possibility, and the idea of productivity. Today, let us see some more ideas. The idea of personality. The idea of personality. Historians of science wrestle with the question why scientific method was born in Christian West rather than Buddhist East or Islamic Middle East. Astrophysicist Tin-Van Thuan, a professor of astronomy at the University of Virginia, gave an interesting explanation. He said, because Christianity describes God as a person who inscribed moral and physical laws in the universe he created. Some of the most fascinating features of the universe were discovered by mathematicians. Jewish mathematician M.A. Nather was the greatest female mathematician ever lived. She discovered that under every physical symmetry, there is a law of conservation. Her theorem says every symmetry of the laws of physics leads to a conservation law. Every conservation law arises from a symmetry in the laws of physics. She said every law of conservation, whether it is a conservation of energy or conservation of momentum, is connected to symmetry. Even Albert Einstein, who is known for general theory of relativity, was amazed by her genius. How she discovered such mesmerizing truths about the universe using mathematical ideas. It was Galileo who said the universe is written in the language of mathematics. Language is an expression of intellect. Intelligence is an idea. Intelligence is a product of mind. Whose mind? Whose intellect? If mathematics is an idea, whose idea? Intelligence and ideas, they don't arise from inert matter. They don't emerge from rocks and plants. That question imposes upon us a search for a person. You take Chinese worldview with its 5 elements: fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. In the center, we see yin and yang, two opposing forces. There is no person in that worldview. Hinduism has its own 5 elements. The Greeks have their own 5 elements. You don't see a law-giving personal God in those belief systems. Greek religion has innumerable gods. You see them in eternal wars and orgies. Greek gods don't live by any moral laws. They would sleep with anything, anybody, anytime, anywhere. They don't have any moral virtues. Is it surprising that Greeks could not come up with a coherent ethical system? Similarly, you cannot expect a set of logical laws guiding the universe emanating from Greek pantheon. Astrophysicist Tin-Van Thuan is a Buddhist, but he rightly gave the credit to Christianity as the source of scientific method that arose in the West. Like its mother, Judaism, Christianity introduced a God who is a lawgiver. If you read in the Old Testament, you find a God who is a law-giving God, like in 10 Commandments. Because he is a lawgiver, scientists should go around and search for those laws. The idea of personality, God as a person, God as a lawgiver of both physical and moral laws, was one of the foundational ideas of scientific method, and that idea came from Christianity. Then the idea of preeminence. The idea of preeminence. The Bible teaches us that God created human beings as the crown of creation. The universe was created for human beings and their welfare. The universe was created for man, and man was created for God. We read in Genesis chapter 1 And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. We find the preeminence of human beings here. Darwinian evolution, it rejects that idea. It sees human beings as accidental products of mutations. It sees no difference between human beings and bacteria. Francis Collins, he is the director of National Institutes of Health, a biomedical research facility located in Maryland, United States. With its annual budget of over $30 billion, it conducts health-related research. Recently, Francis Collins put a hold on all new research on chimps because they are our relatives. Through many Western countries today, animal research is coming to an end because we are not supposed to abuse our relatives like that. I am a medical doctor. I treat a lot of patients, especially pregnant patients. Today we cannot use many medications safely in pregnant women because animal studies about the safety of many medications are lacking. Don't mistake animal welfare and animal rights. We should love animals and take care of animals. But when we start giving animals these special relative status, it's going to hamper scientific progress. You know, many groundbreaking innovations in medical science came through animal research. For example, Frederick Banting used dogs for his discovery of insulin. William Harvey used many mammals in the discovery of circulation of blood. Edward Jenner used many cows in the creation of smallpox vaccine. Louis Pasteur used so many cattle and dogs to create the first vaccines for rabies and anthrax. They were influenced by biblical creationism. They believed in the preeminence of human beings. Had they seen animals like relatives of human beings, they would not have ventured into biomedical research. Darwinism dealt a fatal blow to biomedical research. Ingrid Newkirk, she is the president of People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. She declared, I am an animal. One of the titles of her book says, a rat is a pig, is a dog, is a boy. A rat is a pig, is a dog, is a boy. A human being is same as a rat. A human being is equal to pig. Let us say you are witnessing a building on fire. There is a dog and a rat and a little boy or a girl in that house. If you are a firefighter, who do you save first? According to Ingrid Newkirk, it makes no difference whether you save a rat or a dog or a pig or a human baby. That kind of thinking is obstructing scientific research. Because of the influence of Darwinism, many scientists are now openly expressing their contempt for human beings. Carlos Cipolla wrote in his book, The Economic History of World Population, the basillus man is taking over the world. The basillus man is taking over the world. He is describing human beings as some sort of bacteria. Lynn Margulis was an evolutionary biologist and wife of Carl Sagan. Lynn Margulis used to call people mammalian weeds. Mammalian weeds. You can feel the disdain she has for human beings. That kind of contempt was what led scientists in the United States and Europe during Second World War to do sterilization of mentally and physically handicapped people in the name of eugenics. Christian idea of human preeminence has restrained such abuses of science. Then the idea of power. The idea of power. For thousands of years, human beings treated nature as divine. They made gods out of fire, wind, rivers, oceans, animals, plants, and rocks. In India, for example, until recently, smallpox was considered a goddess, not just a punishment from God. For the Christian, smallpox was nothing more than a scourge. But for a pantheist, it was a form of goddess, and he would not dare to eliminate that disease. Such views also controlled Greeks and Romans. They treated nature as divine and always viewed themselves subservient to natural elements. They sacrificed human beings to pacify the nature. When you read about the human sacrifices practiced by Aztecs and Mayans, how they cut hearts out of the chests of their victims and offered those hearts to their gods, it numbs the mind. Christianity gave a different view of the world. Earlier I read from the book of Genesis chapter 1 verse 26. And God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. God is saying, I created you in my image, and I am giving you dominion over the natural world. Exercise dominion over nature. Don't make gods out of the nature. Nature is not above man, it is below man. Scientific revolution would not have been born had human beings continued to believe that they were subservient to nature. When scientific revolution was born, the West believed in the book of Genesis. Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe is about an young man who believed that progress is possible, individually and socially. Even cannibals could stop their cultural practices and reform themselves. When he rescues Friday from the cannibals, he is also rescuing himself from the state of animal desires. He reads the Bible, thanks God for his fate, and then praises God for his creation. What is the big lesson in Robinson Crusoe? Robinson Crusoe is a narrative about the power of human reasoning to overcome the natural world. First, find your place in God's order, then use the power of reason to overcome the natural world. W. Bernard Carlson is the professor of science and technology at the University of Virginia. He published a 7-volume Technology in World History by Oxford University Press. While discussing technology in Roman world, Professor Carlson describes how the Romans failed to maximize the efficiency of their technology. Two great innovations moved Europe out of dark ages: water wheels and clocks. Water wheels were the first major energy source beyond human muscle and animals. They are the first example of a prime mover in human history. Archaeological evidence shows that water wheels originated in Mesopotamia around 300 BC. Now we know that water wheels can be used to power a range of technical works: flour mills, sawmills, pumps for mines, power looms, bellows for iron foundries, spinning machines each. The Romans were great engineers, but they could not exploit the water wheel technology for this wide range of works. Why? Professor Carlson says, because the Romans, they took animistic view of nature. Greek philosopher Thales once said, all things are full of gods. In 1st century before Christ, Greek poet Antipater said that water wheels are turned by nymphs. Greeks and Romans believed that nymphs inhabit the rivers and work on water wheels, and human beings should not invade their workspace. Stay from nymphs, not to offend the nymphs. The Romans were not able to build water wheels on a large scale. Christianity changed that thinking. There are no nymphs or mythical spirits. God created human beings in His image and gave them dominion over the nature. Professor Carlson said, one of the great contributions of Christianity to science is Christianity demythologized the nature. Christianity demythologized the nature. Human beings can control nature and harness its forces to their advantage. Christians removed the nymphs from the workplace. The idea of power over nature came from Christianity, and it led to industrial revolution. Christians correctly see the place of nature in God's order. Nikola Tesla was a great Serbian inventor and physicist. Among other things, he designed AC electric generator, Tesla coil, and wireless systems. He predicted internet almost 100 years ago. Tesla saw God's design underlying everything in nature. Tesla once described his ability to create new machines first in his mind. In his biography of Tesla, inventor of the electrical age, Professor Bernard Carlson writes, I quote, "How did Tesla know that it was important to seek out the ideal underlying an invention? I suspect that this willingness to seek the idea grew out of the religious beliefs he acquired from his father and uncles in the Serbian Orthodox Church. Like all Christians, the Orthodox believe in the Trinity, that God is three persons in one, the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. As in Western Christianity, they further believe that through the Son, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. John 1:14. And that through the incarnation, Jesus lived on earth and died for our sins. However, in Orthodox Christianity, the fact that the Son of God is Word takes on a deeper meaning. For Orthodox Christians, then, the material universe is not only orderly, but everything in it, natural and man-made, has an underlying divine principle, a logos that can be discovered by humans. Indeed, one of the ways that humans can praise God, whether as craftsmen, manufacturers, or inventors, is to seek out the logos in all things. Hence, Orthodox beliefs about the Son of God as the Word or logos would have prompted Tesla to seek out the idea in his inventions. End quote. Tesla wanted to see God's order, the power of human reason to discover that order. You see, the idea of power over nature is the foundation of science, and that it came from Christianity. Next, the idea of priesthood. The idea of priesthood ultimately helped launch the scientific revolution. Two most famous figures condemned for heresy by Catholic Church were Martin Luther and Galileo Galilei. In 1521, the Diet of Worms under Charles V tried Martin Luther for heresy. In 1633, the Inquisition of the Catholic Church tried Galileo because of his possibly heretical views about the nature of the universe. Martin Luther thought that the people should have direct contact with God, no mediation by priests. He believed that the core of faith came from the Bible, not from the church or church officials. The Protestant Reformation began in 1517 when Martin Luther posted his 95 Theses on the door of Wittenberg Cathedral. The Catholic Church responded aggressively. Pope Leo issued a bull in 1520 prohibiting all works from the pen of Martin Luther. The church rejected Martin Luther's insistence on the right to a personal reading and interpretation of the Bible. The Council of Trent, held between 1545 and 1563, it declared, "No one, relying on his own judgment and distorting the sacred scriptures according to his own conceptions, shall dare to interpret them." Martin Luther departed Roman Catholic Church in defiance. It is the birth of freedom of conscience. Now, it's not about who is right, Catholics or Protestants, that's a different subject. But it is the right to dissent, it's the right to express your ideas, it's the right to freedom of speech, it's the right to freedom of conscience. Science cannot advance an inch without freedom of conscience. Martin Luther, he paved the way to science. His defiance towards the church, the most authoritarian system of Middle Ages, it attracted Catholic scientists like Bruno, like Descartes, like Galileo. Albert Einstein called Galileo the father of modern physics, indeed of modern science altogether. 112 years after the diet of worms, Catholic Church brought Galileo to trial. Catholic Church was influenced so much by Aristotle. It mingled ideas of Aristotle with its teachings. Galileo challenged the authority of Aristotle and the Church. When Catholic Church and Galileo confronted each other, both were influenced by Martin Luther. For both sides, Luther was lurking in the back of their minds. Flaming through the Reformation led by Luther, the church did not want to be lenient toward Galileo. Luther's spirit of listening to one's own conscience inspired Galileo to take a firm stand for his convictions. Historians of science, Lindbergh and Numbers, they wrote that the trial of Galileo was not so much a dispute between religion and science as a dispute within the Catholic Church regarding the interpretation of the Bible. Be that as it may, both Martin Luther and Galileo refused to obey the dictates of Catholic Church. Martin Luther believed in the priesthood of believers. Pope told Martin Luther, "I am God's representative, you should obey me and keep quiet." Luther said no. Charles V, who presided over the diet of worms, told Luther, "I am God's substitute, you should obey me and keep quiet." Luther said no. His discovery of the belief that every believer in Christ is equal before God revolutionized the concept of individual freedom and conscience. Pantheism is devoid of such freedom of conscience. Recently, I was visiting Honolulu, Hawaii. One afternoon, I took a taxi to go to Pearl Harbor. The driver of my taxi was a Japanese gentleman. We were into a conversation talking about different things. At one point, I asked him, "What do you worship? What do you worship?" He said, "I worship nature, everything in nature, mountains and rivers and animals and snakes and human beings. I worship everything." I said, "So you are a pantheist?" He said, "Yes." I thought of more than 3,800 Japanese pilots who went on kamikaze suicide attacks in the Pacific campaign of World War II. Those pilots were told, "Your emperor, Hirohito, your god and protector, he wants you to commit suicide in the service of the nation." The pilots did not think twice and obeyed the orders and went on their suicide missions. Pantheism is a stumbling block to freedom from authority. In most universities today, you cannot even criticize the weaknesses in Darwin's theory of evolution. For many decades, no scientist in the West was able to challenge the central dogma of biology. Now, what is the central dogma of biology? It It insisted that genetic information flows exclusively from DNA to RNA to protein. It cannot flow back from protein to DNA or RNA. But geneticist Howard Temin, he challenged that idea with the discovery of reverse transcriptase in the 1970s. He demonstrated that it was possible to create DNA from an RNA template using the enzyme reverse transcriptase. Many highly respected scientists mocked the work of Howard Temin because it was contrary to the central dogma in molecular biology. The scientific community pressured Howard Temin to give up, relinquish his ideas, and to submit to the authorities. But Howard Temin did not oblige. Further studies have proved him right, and later he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1975 for the discovery of reverse transcriptase. The idea of challenging the authority, challenging the tradition, was born out of the New Testament. Every believer is equal before God and does not require the mediation of Pope or any other religious authority. So did Christianity suppress science? The answer is no. Christianity provided the foundational ideas to scientific method. Today we have seen 4 ideas: the idea of personality, the idea of preeminence, the idea of power, and the idea of priesthood. Hope you enjoyed this lecture, and I would like to hear from you. If you have criticisms or comments, please write to me at comments@drpaul.org. That's comments@drpaul.org. Thank you very much.